Now,
Everyone say if they got it. Raise their hand.
it's time for Mama to start the lecture, okay? Are we good, Chip? You can still listen in. You can hear what I have to say anyway. Okay, so last Monday we stopped here, yeah, about we talked about man-made forests of this in this rescue center in Taiwan. So we'll continue with the other aspects of management, and we can get straight to feeding. So when we talk about feeding, it's not just the importance of like a balanced diet, no? But we also need to make sure that the food is presented properly. Um, the argument in wildlife
Mama.
management is that there are two trains of thought. No? The first one is that we need to keep it clean. So we end up putting plates in the enclosure where the animals feed. On the other hand, if we want to make it a naturalistic environment, then we have to remember that plates don't actually exist in the wild. So we make most of the presentation apart from knowing if they are herbivores. Which one is a herbivore there, Chick?
The giraffe.
Okay, and the carnivore is the
Snake.
and the omnivore is the
Pig.
yeah, that's a Visayan warty pig. So apart from knowing which trophic level they belong or what they eat, it's also important to make sure we understand the behavior behind, feeding. It's really important because as what Chip's doctor said, feeding is actually and eating is behavioral as well as instinctive. No? So at the end of the day, feeding is just not about food, but also about behavior. And it matters because we need to take into consideration the duration of feeding, which is really important, as many animals feed intermittently throughout the day, and that's what they mostly do anyway, but also the manner on which they feed. For instance, this video shows a cockatoo taking its time because you prolong the feeding time by kind of making it harder for it to obtain the food. And it takes advantage of the foraging behavior of these animals, as well as making sure that they use the body parts they actually use to feed, no? Like their tongue and their beaks.
Wow, your food demonstration is starting to make me hungry.
At the end of the day, we also need to be creative in the way we present food. No, for instance, these are what we call puzzle feeders. The big picture here is a feeder for cetaceans, and it shows how complicated, no, feeding can be because they need to go through all these obstacles to be able to get to their food. The one with the tortoises are kind of like a swing feeder. So on the other end of that balance is another feeder, another fruit kebab that some of the turtles would have access to. So while the turtles on one end are feeding, the other turtles on the other end are straining to get to the food that was elevated, thereby making them exercise for their food. And then this simple one with a log and carrots inside is what we use for foraging, to promote foraging behavior in African river hogs. We did this workshop in Bulgaria where we fixed the enclosure and provided enrichment for the animals.
Wash hands.
Okay, the next thing we need to think about is, because
Washing
we're
your hands.
vets, we need to think about
Wash our
hygiene. And
hands.
this is because we need to be sentinels against diseases. So if you notice in this photo, there's a washing up liquid and it says cheetah. So because this washing up liquid is for cheetah food trays only. So they are not used for human food trays. This is an example of a picture of the cheetah kitchen in in San Diego Zoo. Sorry. And this is how they thaw the food. So they don't put them in water for thawing. They thaw the food over several days, using the different levels of the fridge to thaw the food. And all of their food containers should be elevated. So apart from cleaning what you need to use for the animals, you also clean what the items for cleaning, no? We need to make sure that animal food is separated from people food. And in areas where there is water, no, in the enclosure, like marine parks, they make use of a filtration system, much like this that we will find in SeaWorld. Last but not the least, we have enrichment. And this takes care of the psychosocial needs of the animals. It also helps promote good behavior or natural behavior. So, and most often, enrichment is not seen, especially in the Philippines, it's not seen as a normal part of management. No? But we have to change that mindset because we tend to put psychosocial needs at the back seat. No? But enrichment is not just that. No? On Wednesday, we will talk more about enrichment and how it can contribute to management and health of these animals. So as I said, enrichment is used to encourage normal patterns of behavior, assist in health and management and health management and medication, as well as it also helps solve management-related problems. So this one is a voluntary blood draw that we did for rescued rough-toothed dolphins. And solving the overgrown beak of this white-bellied sea eagle was done with the help of enrichment as well. So other examples of management-related enrichment that has to do with animal training as well, no, are these. So teaching the cheetah how to go palm up so that the keepers can check their paws for, twigs or rocks. Providing areas for basking so that the animals can then come out of their hiding places and be more mobile, like this snake. And also using training to get blood. This is a blood collection exercise in a tiger. Drawing blood through the, what's that shape? Drawing blood through the caudal vein. So another thing that we need to make sure of is we need to know how to keep records properly. And record keeping is not just like keeping a list, no? It also involves proper communication. So we need to make sure we know what facts count, no? Apart from animal information, we also need to know food facts. What are the favorite foods of these animals? Because then you can use that information to provide medication. What are the habits and behavior if an animal is, for instance, aggressive towards conspecifics, then we need to know that. And enclosure facts. If the enclosure is, let's say, broken, we need to know that too. And all of these information need to have a receptacle of some sort. No? For instance, this information can be used in a genetic study, or a parasitology study, like this poop study, in the Busch Gardens, where they put edible glitter non-toxic glitter in the food so that the poop comes out with glitter. And each animal is assigned a color so that they know which poop belongs to which animal. So facts such as what the animal looked like when it arrived, the physical exam results, for instance, all of these things should go into the animal information. And eventually, it will help you it will help you better manage, but also contribute to conservation through uh, eventual management of endangered or critically endangered species. No? So an example this is an example that we did in Negros where I used to work. On the top corner photo is a Luzon bleeding heart pigeon, which we took care of for a long time because we wanted to try to make sure we know what to do when the critically endangered Negros bleeding heart pigeon comes by. So for 18 years, there was no sign of a Negros bleeding heart. But we were able to kind of perfect the what we call we were able to perfect the way to breed the Luzon bleeding heart. And because the Luzon bleeding heart pigeon is very closely related to the bleeding heart pigeon, when eventually these bleeding heart pigeons arrived, we were able to not only simulate the breeding management for the species, but also to only adjust a little to the species in question. So the picture below is a pair of Negros bleeding heart pigeons courting. And the one on the side, the big photo, is the picture of the first ever captive bred Negros bleeding heart pigeons. And through that, because we recorded our data, because we kept records, we were able to also show how it can be possible, not just for us, but also for other facilities who might sorry other facilities who might want to breed the animal, or similar species. So the data for this and the background information that we were able to use to breed the critically endangered Negros bleeding heart was also from science-based material. No? Our model was the Mauritius pink pigeon and the Luzon bleeding heart, which we used as a model for breeding the Negros bleeding heart. So at the end of the day, this data, although observation data, all of this is science if you keep it properly. This is the first video of a male Negros bleeding heart pigeon feeding their chicks from crop milk. So at the end of the day, we were able to present our paper in the annual symposium of the Philippine Biodiversity Conservation Group, as well as produce papers linked to the conservation of the Negros bleeding heart. So the end goal eventually of our record keeping and communication should be something that we can share to the community, not just the conservation community, but also to the general wildlife keeping community, because some of the information regarding wildlife are still elusive. There are a lot of things we still don't know, and it's really important to share this information so that we may be able to provide better chances for these animals, as well as to provide them better welfare. So at the end of the day, the animals will tell you if they are happy. The question is, do you know how to listen? They will tell you if they are happy. Like this is Luis from our Negros breeding group, and he's rotting and taking grass on his head as headgear. So at the end of the day, you just have to learn how to listen. So, thank you. Are there any questions so far? Ay, hindi na to. Hindi yan. Hindi tayo magku-quiz.
What's the quiz?
The quiz says, if you were an animal, what would you be?
Eagle.
Okay. Are there any questions? Naku. Huh? So the activity for this today is a quiz. I think JB already answered.
Already answered it too.
Ha? Okay.
Already answered it.
So yeah.
Already answered it.
Yeah, but they have a 12. There's a 12-point quiz today. That you need to answer. It's called Wildlife Management Quiz. Yun. Tapos yun lang po yung requirement nyo for today. Okay? Yeah? Are you done, Chip? No? Okay. So I'll leave you to it. Please send me a message. Yes, Michael.
Pangalan po ng quiz ay Wildlife Management.
Oh, lock pa siya?
Yes, Doc.
Okay, so sorry.
Sorry po sa akin until 2 p.m. September 21.
Okay. So, yeah. 5 p.m. naman yung due date niya. So, okay lang yon kasi I would like the students to read through the handout and watch the lecture so that they have something to answer. That's the point. So after this, I will stop the class so that I can post the video. And you have references. You can study before the quiz, the actual quiz. Okay? Okay ba yun? Yes? Yes? Okay. Thank you, Joanne. Okay, so i-stop ko yung recording and then so that I can get the